When a girl from his school becomes the victim of a frightening case, a young outcast decides to avenge her and creates an evil plan to get rid of every one of his enemies. Today we're going to recap the story of the movie, Puzzle, from 2014. Shigeo is a Japanese high school young man who has been teased by his classmates ever since he was little. Although his school has bullies everywhere, Naoya and his group of friends are the worst. One day, at her school, a girl called Azusa, who has been the victim of a horrific crime, decides to jump off the roof and end her own life. Seeing the young girl lying in the flower bed, the young man runs towards her and realizes that his classmate is already eliminated. Luckily, however, the young woman managed to survive and, a few weeks later, Shigeo visits her in hospital. Just then, a nurse goes to check on her and accidentally knocks over the serum that was being applied to Azusa's veins. When this happens, the young girl's blood starts to be sucked through the hose. Seeing this scene, the girl remembers the terrible injustice she has suffered and has a panic attack. She immediately removes the catheter from her arm and the nurse tries to calm her down until the medical team arrives. Furious at seeing his classmate suffer yet again, Shigeo strikes the nurse and is removed from the room. From that day on, the young man starts acting strangely and gathers a group of friends to break into the school wearing bizarre masks. That day, the team of delinquents enters the classroom of a pregnant teacher and decides to take her prisoner before sending a note to the principal. One of the representatives of this group then contacts the school authorities and reveals that Miss Yasuda is tied up on the kitchen floor. To prevent anything bad from happening to her, both the principal and the school teachers must take part in the game proposed by the masked student. Quickly, one of the teachers tries to call the police, but is unable to complete the call because the phone signal has been cut off. To demonstrate that his threats are serious, the man pierces the teacher's calf with a stiletto and causes panic among the teaching staff. Soon after, the madman threatens to eliminate Yasuda's baby if the teachers refuse to hand over their cell phones. Determined to save their coworker's life, they follow the young man's demands. They are then informed that Yasuda will only be released when the game is completed. The teacher's aim is to complete the puzzle, the pieces of which are scattered around various remote control cars. The group will only have 3 hours to solve the puzzle and, if they fail to complete the mission within the stipulated time, Miss Yasuda will suffer the consequences. While waiting for the game to finish, one of the delinquents enjoys terrorizing his prisoner and threatens to throw porcelain dishes at her. At this point, the teachers are scattered around the school trying to catch the carts and need to find the ones that are actually carrying the pieces. After gathering all the pieces, the trio is told to go to the gym and they discover that one piece is missing to complete the director's picture. Meanwhile, Mr. Takai is in his living room and finds a remote control car in his desk drawer. When he picks it up, the director faints as the vehicle splashes him with a substance that causes him to black out. Numerous photos of Azusa are then scattered around him, and it seems that Mr. Takai took them himself. After capturing the principal, Shigeo and his allies get into a van and drive away. Before leaving, they set a trap in the kitchen, as the teachers were unable to complete the puzzle in time. Then, when they go in to rescue Miss Yasuda, a microwave falls on her belly, causing her baby to be eliminated. In the days following the attack, the identity of those responsible began to be investigated and published on the school's website. When Detective Mitome learns that his son, Naoya, is being accused of such a crime, he is furious and frustrated to learn that he will have to hand in his badge. To make matters worse, the man discovers that Naoya and 2 other friends are missing, so he decides to investigate on his own. That afternoon, he goes to the hospital to try to find out why Azusa decided to take her own life and reports that he has found several bank transfers that Director Takai made for her. When questioned about the reason for the payments, the young woman remembers the worst day of her life and returns to her room. As he couldn't get any information out of the girl, the detective decided to go to Shigeo's house, as he was seen in the park with Naoya a few days ago, and asked about the young man's relationship with his son. Shigeo promptly replies that they're not friends, they just go to the same school. At this point, Mitome takes the opportunity to ask him why he attacked the nurse who was looking after Azusa, but Mrs. Yuasa interrupts him and asks the detective to leave. The truth is that after the fall that almost took Azusa's life, Shigeo decided to take revenge on the people who hurt her and used an intimate video of the bullies in her class to blackmail them. This way, as well as taking revenge on Naoya and his friends, he got new victims to take part in his dirty game. That afternoon, Shigeo visits his friend in hospital and reveals that he was responsible for the chaos at the school. The young man said that he could no longer see those people living their lives peacefully after what they had done, but Azusa disapproved of the young man's attitude and asked him to leave. Then, before leaving, Shigeo hands her an envelope. Since the day of the attack, Mr. Takai and 3 other students have disappeared, so the principal's daughter, Sayaka, decides to make a statement to the students' families and claims that all the accusations being made about her father are false. The young woman is hopeful that the 4 missing victims will return safely to their homes and believes that when this happens, the real culprit for harming Azusa will be arrested. At the end of her speech, a small monument of the school is knocked down and behind it is a drawing of a QR code. Suddenly, the detective hears footsteps coming from the emergency stairs and opens the door to find out who is on the other side. He then finds 2 of the 3 missing students tied up and a short video of a masked young man explaining how to save them. 2 weeks ago, in a fake attempt to make up, Shigeo was drinking soda with the guys who had been tormenting him and Naoya asked him to delete the video. However, the delinquents were fooled, as the drink was poisoned and, when they passed out, Shigeo dragged their bodies up the school stairs. When the young men wake up, they discover that a bomb is attached to their heads and Shigeo informs them that they will explode when the sun goes down. The same will happen if they try to take it away or if they ask for the help of a bomb squad. The only way for them to get out alive is to complete the puzzle, the pieces of which are on bicycles scattered around the city. After watching the video, Detective Mitome has to evacuate the school building and call in a police team to search the bikes on the streets. Their goal is to put all the pieces of the puzzle together in order to save them. But in the meantime, the cops come across numerous false leads and have to deal with explosive bicycles. After a brief visit to her classmates who are stuck at school, Azusa remembers the envelope Shigeo gave her at the hospital and discovers that inside it are 2 crucial pieces for putting the puzzle together. Now, she has to decide whether to eliminate the delinquents or help save them. Immediately, Azusa decides to burn the pieces and is caught by Professor Yasuda. When time runs out, the bomb attached to Kentaro and Yoshihiro's heads explodes and a large amount of blood comes out of their ears. Seeing this terrible scene, the young parents despair, but there is nothing more they can do. Later, Professor Yasuda decides to make a statement to Detective Mitome and expresses her desire to see those responsible for what happened to her baby punished. She then says that she needs to show the detective something. When Azusa leaves the hospital, Shigeo meets her at the door and escorts her home. He then asks her to wear a mask and leads her down to the basement, where Naoya and Principal Takai are being held. After striking each of them with a stiletto, Shigeo asks the young woman to do the same, but Azusa refuses and says she doesn't agree with what her colleague is doing. At that moment, Shigeo reminds the girl that she didn't save the 2 young men who were trapped in the school and instead decided to get rid of the 2 missing pieces to put the puzzle together. Frightened, the girl climbs the stairs, comes across Detective Mitome and asks for help, but he accuses her of letting the young men perish and begins to question her. When Shigeo shows up, the detective takes the girl prisoner and orders the psychopath to reveal the whereabouts of his son. To prevent anything bad from happening to Azusa, the young man decides to take him to the basement, but before Mitome can go downstairs, Mrs. Yuasa appears and attacks him with a frying pan. Immediately, the detective pushes Azusa and knocks the woman down, then Shigeo tries to attack him, but is hit and falls to the ground. However, when Mitome goes downstairs to find his son, Shigeo manages to hit him and they both end up rolling down the stairs. In his desperation to find his son, Mitome barely manages to fend off Shigeo's attacks and ends up being seriously injured. Before collapsing, the man falls next to Naoya, but is unable to help him free himself. Just then, Azusa appears and the young man begs for her help, but as she looks at him, the girl has a flashback to the worst day of her life. Almost 2 months ago, she was taken by Miss Yasuda to the principal's office, who asked the teacher to leave because she wanted to talk to the girl in private. The truth is that Azusa's parents were going through financial problems and therefore couldn't pay the school fees. As a condition of not being expelled from school, the principal demanded that the girl sleep with him, but Azusa refused. Upon realizing the terrible intentions of that old man, the young woman ran for the door, but was grabbed halfway and started screaming for help. While she was being attacked by the director, Naoya and his friends showed up and started filming that terrible scene. However, instead of helping the girl escape and denouncing the mean old man, they also took advantage of her and recorded her bizarre crime on video. When the girl was leaving school, Miss Yasuda found her and clearly saw what had happened to Azusa. However, after being intimidated by the principal, the teacher decided to keep quiet about the horrendous crime and did not report it to the police. Remembering the nightmare she experienced at the hands of those people, Azusa begins to cry and decides to attack them. After taking the stiletto, the young woman pierces the criminals and feels enormous happiness at causing them pain. Soon after, she goes to Shigeo's room and meets his pet lizard. Meanwhile, Miss Yasuda tries to contact Mitome to find out if he has managed to arrest the culprits, but the man won't answer her calls. Now it's Naoya's turn to suffer the consequences of his crime. After being taken to school, he suffers the same fate as his friends and has a bomb attached to his body. The young man has no strength left to fight for his life when Shigeo starts recording the video containing instructions on what people can do to try and save him. Once again, a police team has to go around the city searching bikes to find the pieces of a puzzle. Meanwhile, director Takai remains trapped in the basement and, after managing to free himself from the chains, searches the clothes of a girl who is also chained up in that room. As the young woman is wearing a mask, he can't see who she is, but he finds the key and gets rid of the bombs that were stuck in his body. A few hours ago, Azusa and Shigeo hatched a plan to capture the principal's daughter, and Azusa used her broken leg as an excuse to ask Sayaka to help her get home. In reality, however, she lures the young woman to Shigeo's house and, when she gets there, Sayaka is attacked. After losing consciousness, she was taken to the basement wearing a mask and school clothes so that her father wouldn't recognize her. When he wakes up, Detective Mitome is strapped to a stretcher and desperately tries to free himself. At that moment, he comes across a human skull and his desperation only increases. Upon hearing the detective's voice, Mrs. Yuasa appears and reveals that those are the parts of her husband, who was eliminated by Shigeo when the young man saw him attack his mother. During this meeting, the woman shows the video that was recorded by Naoya and his friends and reveals that the young man is only being punished for the crime he committed against Azusa. Seeing that terrible scene, Mitome can hardly believe that his son was capable of doing something so terrible and is shocked to realize that he doesn't know the young man he himself raised. After again committing the same crime he did with Azusa, showing that he has no regrets, Takai notices the necklace around the girl's neck and realizes that it is his own daughter. Terrified, he removes his victim's mask and despairs when Sayaka sees the face of his predator. After watching the recording made by his son, Mitome comes across live footage of Naoya's current condition, and Mrs. Yuasa says that while he is watching the delinquent being eliminated, the detective will also be eliminated. However, when the woman attacks him, Mitome manages to knock her down and steals her knife. After freeing himself, he tries to strike Yuasa, but she flees into the kitchen and ends up being shot in the back. At that moment, Mitome comes across a wall full of documents, images and information on how to remove the parts of a human body. After putting the puzzle together, the police manage to get into the room where Naoya is supposed to be. However, when they get there, the only thing they find is a masked mannequin, and, when one of the policemen removes the mask, the doll explodes. Just then, the bomb attached to Naoya's body explodes and the young man perishes after several days under attack. Upon arriving at the school, Mitome sees the place surrounded and the police injured. When he looks upstairs, he sees a lot of smoke coming out and has no idea that on the terrace are the people really responsible for all the chaos. Together, Azusa and Shigeo use stilettos to cut the strips holding the cement blocks where pieces of Naoya's body are hidden. On seeing the young man's head, the police ask the detective to step back and try to prevent him from seeing the bizarre scene. However, the man soon realizes that this is the body of his son and is completely terrified. Seeing Shigeo on the terrace of the building, Mitome immediately goes upstairs to get him and uses a cupboard to hold the door to prevent the young man from escaping. To his surprise, when he gets there, the detective doesn't find his target, because Shigeo has remained hidden, just waiting for the right moment to surprise the policeman with an attack. When the young man appears with an iron bar, they both start fighting for their lives, because they know that only one of them can come out of that duel alive. During the fight, Azusa hides upstairs while her friend takes a beating. After getting rid of the iron bar that Shigeo was using to attack him, the detective hits the young man with several kicks and, meanwhile, the policemen try to open the door to stop the fight. When Shigeo can no longer stand up, Mitome takes a pair of scissors and cuts the young man's tendons, causing unbearable pain. Then the man starts biting off the fingers on the young man's right hand, and Shigeo screams for Azusa's help, who immediately runs downstairs to rescue him. With a metal bar in her hands, the young woman strikes the detective and he manages to knock her down with a kick. When Mitome walks towards the girl with the intention of getting rid of her, Shigeo uses his left hand to knock him down and is about to be pierced with the scissors when Azusa strikes the detective's arm. At that moment, the metal bar breaks and forms a spike, which the girl uses to pierce her enemy's abdomen and eliminate him once and for all. Seeing her friend in trouble, Shigeo throws the pliers at Azusa and, after catching the tool, she pierces Mitome's neck. With a sequence of insane attacks, the young woman seriously injures the policeman and, in order to get rid of him triumphantly, Shigeo uses the rest of his strength to push him off the terrace, throwing himself down with him. Frightened, Azusa goes to check if her friend has survived and, before dying, Shigeo extends his hand upwards in farewell. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you like the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.